Legacy Workshop participants, and honored guests. This week will be a great time of memories, making new friends, learning about the Korean War, and most importantly, honoring our grandfathers, for without their service, we would not be here today. My grandfather, Lowell Lathrop Hayes, served from October of 1952 to July of 1953, and was a member of the 7th Division, 32nd Regiment, 1st Battalion, Companies A and D in the U.S. Army. He fought on Porchop Hill, Iron Triangle, and Old Baldy, oftentimes as lead scout, or also called Point, where he was wounded twice. Similar to many of your grandfathers, my grandfather was not able to talk much about the war until recently, due to the fact that much of society did not want to acknowledge another war occurring past World War II. We are here this week on behalf of our grandfathers and our countries as descendants to show our loved ones that we care for them and love them deeply, illustrating to them in the world that we will never, nor will we ever forget their sacrifice to Korea. We have been fortunate enough to have had at least some time with our grandfathers and great-grandfathers, even if it was only when we were kids, because many of other families were not given that opportunity. And so for that, I will always be grateful. My goal for this workshop is to promote the legacy of those whom we interview through their families and communities. So my idea was sparked through when I went to the Peace Camp a couple weeks ago. I took with me a scrapbook, and I shared my grandfather's stories and also his life past the war, physically through a scrapbook. I took pictures, we collected his stories and wrote them down, and took some documents and so forth and just collaborated it. My grandmother and I worked together to put it together. So, with that, I'm hoping to create a scrapbook, either virtual or physical, for each veteran that we interview, and collect those documents from them and so forth, and present a scrapbook to their families to continue their legacy within their family and their communities. This would also be a really great way to continue our growth for the KWV Youth Corps and to share our mission with other descendants. And then also, hopefully maybe down the road, we can create one large main scrapbook of the different artifacts and so forth, and take down some of the stories written and create a scrapbook of everyone that we collect, so that we have something physical to take around for presentations for like our exec board to take around to like the KWVA, to VA hospitals, to the VFWs, and even some possible funders for our organization. So with that in mind, I'm going to come over here and kind of share a little bit more about my grandfather. So this was his military picture. And like I said, he was in the 7th Infantry Division, front line. This was his war picture taken in a bunker in 1953. And here's a telegram to his parents. It says, "The Secretary of the Army has asked me to express his deep regret that your son, Private Lowell L. Hayes, was wounded in action in Korea, October 1952 on the 30th. He sustained a flesh wound of chest, I can't quite read this, by artillery fire while engaging opposing forces," and then the address. So, and that was October of 1952. That was actually his first day on the front line. He got wounded with shrapnel. And then also I collected various stories from him, so I've kind of placed them randomly. So this one was saying, "I was in Taegu Hospital and had a chest wound from the first day on the line. An Ethiopian patient would walk by, and I would always smile because I would never want to be on his bad side. We all knew the Ethiopians carried curved knives. About the 3rd or 4th time of him walking by, he offered me Chinese ears. I smiled and shook my head, no thank you." And here's some more stories. So As I can kind of continue on, you can kind of get the idea of what we could possibly do with the stories that we collect from the interviews. This is actually taken, so I lived in DC for 2 years, so quite frequently I would go visit the War Memorial, and throughout different seasons I would take various pictures. And his wife is also buried there with him. So I continue to go down there occasionally and clean off the gravesite and post a U.S. flag. And so here was another story. My bunker was on the right point of the hill, although a man was assigned to me. When it got dark, he went up the hill to be with his friends. I stayed alone. One night, after being on patrol the first half of the night, I woke up to strange voices. My first thought was, I will be dead in a few seconds. It was South Korean workers fixing trenches. So education is very important in our family, so I just showed kind of an extra slide of how my education and my grandfather's education has thrived within our family. My grandfather and I actually received our bachelor's degrees from the same university, so he and I also shared that very special bond together. And this picture is of my grandfather of my bachelor's degree graduation. And this was taken because due to the Korean War, my grandfather was not able to participate in his bachelor's graduation ceremony. And we have a special thing at the University of Illinois where the stole that we are given to walk through graduation with, we are to give that stole to someone special that has helped us throughout our education. So because he could not walk in the ceremony, I'm sorry, this is always kind of a hard thing to talk about. I presented the stole to him after I walked the stage. And that was the first time I've ever seen my grandfather cry. So it's really important to me. And then also, my grandfather and my grandmother attended the opening ceremony in 1993 of the Korean War Memorial here in DC. So this is him when he was talking to another Korean War veteran. And then I actually took some of his handwriting and photocopied it into the scrapbook that I created. So this was part of that. Okay. Oh, that's the same one. There we go. And so my grandfather actually wrote an article from his Pork Chop experience in one of the veterans magazines. So this was his published version of the story. And then in the American History Museum, there is a very, very small exhibit on the Korean War. So they actually had a picture of all the major battles that went on. So this was me pointing to Pork Chop Hill, which is the one that he was the most active on and also got wounded at. And then this was the public of information on those from Illinois that were wounded at that time. It was published in 1953. And then this was myself and my roommate in Korea when we did the Army training experience a couple weeks ago. So they actually dressed us up in Army uniforms and we went through a special force training. So those of you who went to Peace Camp will obviously understand what I'm talking about. And this is again the Korean War Memorial. And then this was actually a letter home to his cousin Dennis in '53. Basically just asking about how the farming is doing because we come from a farming family, so all of our extended family are farmers. And then this was taken last year in May when I graduated from GW. We took this picture at Buck's gravesite in Arlington. And this is me, my grandfather, and my dad. And then this is just more of a sample of his handwriting. And then what we would do is that my grandmother and I would help collect his stories by the fact that he would write it, and then we would type up his stories so that you could actually see what his handwriting looked like and make it more personable that way. But this one is actually a really important story that I'd like to share. It says, in April 1953, I was in Dog Company Machine Gun Sergeant. We moved up the large hill, which faced Baldy on the left and Pork Chop on our right front. A company commander showed me where to put the machine guns. One gun was to be put on the left side of the tank, which would fire at Pork Chop. The problem was the tank drew fire. The previous machine gun crew had been killed there, and there was blood everywhere. One night, under heavy fire, I positioned the crew closely in a relatively safe spot and stayed by myself with the machine gun all night. A man must live with himself. And that's actually a phrase that he's taken with him throughout life, is a man must live with himself. And this was just a copy of the second telegram that was sent home from his wound at Pork Chop. And then here was the letter that he received in 1955 stating his award for the Purple Heart. And this is part of the copy of his Purple Heart Award. And I think that this first paragraph is very important to share because of the veterans coming home and actually realizing what their life was like post the war. So after my 3-year enlistment, I returned to do my last year at the University of Illinois. To me, the classes were insignificant and it was extremely difficult to concentrate. I found the best way was to talk out loud in a vacant area of a park or even on the sidewalk. With 1 semester left, I quit college to start farming. It was easier to keep my mind out of Korea working with my hands. Most men my age were draft dodgers or joined the Navy or had been drafted. They thought anyone who enlisted in the Army to be some kind of nut. It was easier to keep to myself than to hear someone brag about how they avoided Korean service. So really this is kind of important to me to share because I think that while we're collecting the stories for the digital workshop, or for the digital memorial, that we need to collect these stories and somehow compile them to show the rest of society what the Korean War has done and how we can continue to promote their own legacy and share these stories, because without these stories, we're not going to know what the war was like, and then it will really truly be forgotten. So, thank you to the KWVA, and I know President Han is not here with us at the moment, but I'd like to thank him as well for putting this together. Wonderful experience, and we really appreciate it. I don't think I would have understood my grandfather's experiences without this and the Peace Camp. So descendants, just wanted to share a message with you to always remember to spread your grandfather's stories and their legacy, so that the Korean War will never again be forgotten. Thank you. Yes.
Did you use what program did you use to make the scrapbook?
This was Smilebox. It was actually a free online scrapbooking program. So you just download it and just create a scrapbook out of it. Yeah.
How long did this take for you to collect the artifacts and then put it on?
It took a couple of weeks. So whenever I collected my grandfather's stories, my grandmother only allowed him to talk to me for about an hour about stories, and so it would be him writing, then me writing, and then us kind of discussing. But if he continued to talk about it for too long, then it would be on his mind too much, and his nightmares would be worse at night. So my grandmother had to cut him off. So we just kind of had to do it in spurts. Yeah.
When you went to the American History Museum,
Yes.
why do you think the Korean War hasn't been very not recognized here now?
I want to say it's just because, kind of what I was saying before, my grandfather actually told me that a lot of his neighbors and so forth were just getting over World War II. So just no one wanted to acknowledge it. And the fact that, you had more coverage with World War II, you had more coverage with Vietnam. So because there was really no coverage with the Korean War, media-wise and so forth, and also just the fact that from what my grandfather described, they just wanted you to come back home after the war and just go back to normal life, like it never happened. And so I think because of that, we haven't been able to experience what the Korean War was like compared to other wars. So therefore, it's just not being shown like it should. Thank you.
You know, when I came back from Korea in 1953, as Amanda said, it wasn't talked about. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It was like, where have you been? And we haven't seen you in a couple of years. If you started to talk about a war, the only war they knew was World War II, because that was a forced war, and of course everybody got involved in that war. I think that the Korean War was done right in the respect that they got Harry Truman, our president at that time, got the United Nations involved. It was not a declared war, nor was Vietnam. But the 32nd Regiment of the 7th Division, her grandfather, they were also at Chosin Reservoir with the 1st Marine Division, although the 1st Marine Division gets most of the glory for escaping the Chosin Reservoir. The 7th lost the most amount of men killed in action at the reservoir. In fact, last October, we buried the remains of Lieutenant Colonel Carlos Faith, who was the commander of the last known battalion at Chosin Reservoir. And he was a member of the 32nd Regiment of the 7th Division. You got to remember one thing, no matter whose division you're in, if you're in the Army or Marine Corps, you have 3 fighting or infantry regiments. So the 31st Regiment and the 32nd Regiment and the 17th Regiment of the 7th Division are very, very highly decorated for the Korean War. And Amanda, you should be very proud.
My grandfather says howdy. My name is Nicole, but I go by Nikki. I'm 28 and from Eugene, Oregon. I'm a student at Lane Community College. I'm studying to be a dental hygienist, but I love history, so. My grandfather, Dale A. Butler, was the 1st Shore Party Battalion of the 1st Marine Division, stationed in Japan, and he spent 4 months in Korea after the peace treaty was signed in 1954. He doesn't talk about it, so that's pretty much all I have, but I'm going to go home and have him show me pictures. Why are we here? We are here to honor our veterans and those who sacrificed their lives. I would like to help in educating KWV descendants and ourselves about the Korean War, and I would like to promote Korean War veteran causes to younger generations, including my 4-year-old daughter. and I would like to help launch the Descendants organization. Sorry, you can't see that. My goal is to preserve history for the Korean War for future generations. It's considered the forgotten war or the unknown war, and I would like to help change that. There was a lack of attention and during and after the war, and now that we're 60 years from that, I would like to relive that with the Korean War veterans. I like to learn hands-on, so I'm hoping that my project will help. I'm more focused on high school and college students, although I would let anybody come in and touch and feel and see what these Korean War veterans went through when they were in Korea. When I first found out about this project, my first email was from Professor Han, and he was so excited for me to be a part of this. And my grandfather, you know, I literally worked on this for the last 2 weeks before, and I was so nervous. And so I would really like to keep going with this. I would also like to work with the veterans' families, and my plan is to organize all of the artifacts from the digital memorial, documenting and categorizing everything, and even getting more from the descendants who are here today to those who have not come forward. My grandfather not being one of them who has come forward. I have no information on him in any record. My original plan came to me 2 years ago when I was in Scotland and I went to the Culloden battlefield. It's when the Jacobites in 1745 fought the English, and we walked through the battlefield and everything. And I've kind of leaned more as that as my big idea was to set up displays and show off all of the medals that were earned, letters like what Amanda has, and awards, and frame photos from Korea, from the U.S., maps of what Korea was like before and now. My grandfather wasn't there until after the treaty was signed, so he just saw what was left. He just saw the devastation. He wasn't there beforehand. There's many books out there, personal records like the prayer book, books, publications, and more historical artifacts. Here's just a basic timeline of how I would set it up. These are only a few of the memorable dates. So I would start with 1950 and work my way through. Okay, sorry. So starting with North Korea invades South Korea, and then working my way through 1950. And then in 1951, again, these are only dates that I pulled off the internet, but there's more. And I would make sure that all the documents were categorized in the correct dates. So starting with 1950 through 1951. and then ending with the treaty being signed in 1953. My hopes for results is the fact that this deserves attention, and we in Oregon, we do have a Korean War memorial. It's a wall, that's it, and it's got all of the Oregon Korean War veterans, but it's just the wall, which is nice, but I would like to see more come of it. Education for future generations is a big part, because I didn't realize that my I didn't realize that my grandfather did all of this. So it's very important to me, and I hope that my daughter shares the same compassion for history that I do. And when I get home, I'm going to go tell my grandfather how much I love him and how much he's worked for this. And that's it. Any questions? Yes.
Did you mention that you're looking to do a traveling memorial as well?
That's my hope, is to take it to high schools and any community centers that will accept us, gyms. I would really like to see it travel, but if it couldn't, what better place to do it than Washington, D.C.? Yes.
When you said that you're going to work, you're planning to work with veterans' families.
Yes.
Do you have any specific plan?
Specific plans?
Yeah.
I think where I would start is contacting I kind of start with Oregon and Washington, because my grandfather lives in Washington and he has lots of friends. So I would hope that he would be, I'm sure he'd be willing to help me in pursuing that and setting me up with his contacts. So.
Do you plan on presenting what you have collected through kind of like a museum type?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be, I mean, I thought maybe 1 or 2 rooms, but just from the last 3 presentations, that's not going to be enough. So I think we'd take the most, it's all important, but the most significant documents and photos and everything, and put those in the museum, and hopefully the more room we have, the better.
Surprised that the young people today, that I can find a group this big out of 310 million people who know anything about the Korean War. You've done a very good job. The girls today, and the one lad here, what is
Ethan.
Yes.
Ethan.
Are very knowledgeable and they paid attention to their grandparents, and it's got some good information out of them. But when you go back to that era, you don't want to go back there. But anyway, when you go back to that era, that's where they got the telephone lines. They have no cell phones. But when the Korean War started, there was 4 divisions in Japan who were left over, part of them from from World War II. The 1st Cavalry Division, 7th Infantry Division, and the 24th and 25th Infantry Divisions. Elements of, that means there was a battalion, maybe of a division, ill-equipped, ill-trained, and the war started in South Korea. And so they asked MacArthur, he's got to stop this flow until we can get troops and backup and new equipment over there. Because all we had was, I think they had muskets, some of them. But they came down so fast and overrun the South Koreans that before they knew it, within a month, they're almost into Busan, which is now Busan. Because they had aircraft, their Air Force, they had 12 P-51 Mustangs left over from World War II. They had no pilots qualified to fly the P-51. And only 9 of the P-51s were flyable. It took us several months to get organized to get the planes over there and that, and the fleets. But they took, if you can imagine, the first guys chosen was the 24th Division, the 19th Regiment, and they were sent over to Busan, and they met, it was called Task Force Smith. If you're doing any research, you're going to find this one first. And General Dean was the commanding general of they were part of the 24th Division. And he looked at Colonel Dean with his group of about 400 men. And he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but he says, you gotta head up this road toward Osan, south of Seoul, because they're running right over us. When you find them, stop them, do everything you can to stop them until we can get enough troops and backup for you. The weapons they had were all World War II weapons. The ammo they had was virtually nothing. And can you imagine telling a young colonel, go up the road, you'll run into them sooner or later, and when you do everything you can to stop them. They had no tanks. They had no Air Force. Their rocket launchers were insufficient to take out the Russian T-34s, and it must have been. They were decimated. But that was the Korean War, and I think really the politicians, when we got home, didn't want to talk about this. And thank you for your service. But I mean, it was no. There's more people paying attention to the Korean War in the last 20 years than did the first 30 years after the war. Thank you.
Jessie Pratt, North Army. It worked in the North Army retreated in South Korea, along with the Allies regained the capital and kept going up past the Vietnam. There have been warnings from China that if the South kept going north, China would intervene, and sadly these warnings were not they went unheeded, and in October 1950, China entered the war, backing North Korea. The South then had to retreat as the North Army, along with China, forced them back past the 38, and they lost solid ground. Slowly, the South, with the Allies, made it back to the 38, and from there it was a relative stalemate, with neither side gaining much ground. On the 8th of July 1951, despite the continuing war, the long and arduous peace talks began. However, it wasn't until the 27th of July 1953 an armistice was signed by North Korea and the United Nations. And again, the 38th parallel was made boundary between communist North and anti-communist South. Devastatingly, this agreement was to lay down arms rather than an end of the peace treaty. The Korean War separated not only a nation but families. It created over 3 million refugees and resulted in over 1,171,000 killed, wounded, captured or missing in action from the South and their allies alone. So this information is good, it gives you facts, statistics, but it doesn't tell you about people that were displaced and people that were fighting. You don't get the personal feelings and their perspectives. You can find out about General MacArthur, or President Truman, or Eisenhower and what they thought, but not those that were there on the front line. I'm proud to say that both my grandfathers fought in the Korean War, and I had the privilege of recently hearing some of these stories and seeing the photos, but not everyone has this opportunity. This is why the program is so important. This war needs to be remembered. Those hardships shouldn't be lost in statistics of something that happened a few years ago. I appreciate so much what KWVDM is trying to do. It is a chance for our ancestors to tell their stories and share their memories for us to continue. It is our duty as descendants of the war veterans to not let this history fade away. The KWVDM is bringing those stories into the future by having them online. It also opens up their accessibility. Now you don't have to be a descendant to hear the stories. Everyone can be a part of continuing the memories of the fallen. These stories should be and need to be told before it is too late. It has taken years for the sacrifices of the many men and women involved to be recognised and remembered for their part in the war. I know in New Zealand it's only really been in the last 10 years that our veterans have been recognised. My grandfather, Louis Kaki, was proud to receive a Korean Peace Medal shortly before his passing, just over a year ago, acknowledging his efforts as a New Zealand soldier in the Korean War. KWVDM could also appeal to the more younger generations in education, as it's using technology, it's watching videos, looking through pictures, and it can aid with their engagement and focuses their attention, and which can increase their learning. Education is quickly becoming more technology-based. Students are encouraged to use the internet more for study over going to the library, and the KWVDM is already one step ahead. They are ready for students to research and hear veteran stories, which will give their research statistics more depth and meaning. I would expect my project to increase awareness about the Korean War and promote the stories and perspectives of those involved. This project is about meshing the cold facts with the people that it refers to, by not letting what happened during those 3 years become lost and to remember those who were involved. These artifacts that will aid in bringing more context and a deeper meaning to those researching the Korean War. It gives a personal touch which you can connect with more. So I leave you with this. He aha te mea nui o te au. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's what is the most important thing in the world. It is people, it is people, it is people. That is what the digital memorial is about. The people, their stories, their memories, and of course their legacy.
Any points or questions, especially with regards to the KWVA in New Zealand? Yes.
What kind of different perspective can you bring from what you've learned here back to New Zealand? How can you incorporate that and bring, I guess, to find more descendants? What do you think you can take from this?
I think it just opens up the idea that there are more, like, in New Zealand, we feel little, we kind of think about, we kind of think about ourselves rather than, you know, a big, well, to me, I can bring in that I have a lot more descendants. I can bring my perspective of what I learned and how people told me their stories. And I think just, again, it just brings a bit more of a personal touch, bringing my perspective and telling people where they can find the information.
Yes. This is kind of a broad question I probably could all think about, but how do you think we can help those who don't already kind of view the importance of the Korean War to develop that importance in their own minds, to view, see the importance of it?
I think to even open up people's minds, they need to see some of the stories. Because I know at home there's very few people that know anything about the Korean War. I think if we started it at school, so far we mainly celebrate one day of war at home. In the whole year we have one day, and it's just so small. It needs to be broadened up. If we started it at school, then you could bring in these different perspectives. They could then keep, if they know that there's more stories that are continuously being joined onto this website, I know I would go on more often to find out all the new stories that are coming up. It's been interviewed.
Orban gave me the name card of the president of New Zealand KWBA, right? Yes. And he is already aware of KWBDM. Is that right?
Yeah, I told him about it. I think he has one computer that's very ancient, so
Yeah, we need to upgrade his computer first. It's so good to have you, the representation from New Zealand, and hope that you can do act like a missionary there and see if you can activate their generations. Samuel, you ready? Smart. Please.
Sam, take the mic out. You're gonna, take it out of the stand. Yeah.
Just mic.
Pull it out. There you
Oh,
go.
good.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. This is a proposal. Actually, I have written this proposal after I back from a peace camp program from Seoul. So it's short, but it has the main pointers. In 2013, the KWB Legacy Workshop, the proposal is on preservation and promotion of the legacy of Ethiopian Korean War veterans. And Samuel from Dr. Marcus University, Ethiopia. An introduction. Ethiopia has been historically engaged in international peacekeeping missions. Among the notable missions that Ethiopia engaged include the mission given by UN in 1951 during the Korean War. In response to the call, Ethiopia sent 3 successive Ainu battalions in Amharic Ainu. The battalion was drawn from the 1st Division Imperial Bodyguard of Imperial Haile Selassie I. The mission was accomplished between June 1951 and April 1954. There are about 3,158 number of soldiers participated in this mission, and principally alongside the 7th Infantry Division. And by all accounts, include the enemies, acquitted themselves well in battle, suffering 121 killed and 536 wounded during the course of the conflict. At the conclusion of the war, the Ethiopians were the only contingent that had no prisoner to collect from the North Koreans, since no Kenyan soldiers ever surrendered. Now, the main purpose of this project is suggests designing and addressing the war-time Ethiopian and world heroes with sustainable life support schemes. As we have discussed in previous, during this time, the age factor, however, many are living for food. Therefore, this ignites us to follow a new approach that helps to retell the history and untold stories of these veterans. This can be done through developing video, photo, biography of the veterans. There are objectives, main objectives and specific objectives. The main objective of this project is to collect, organize, and digitalize the personal history of the Ethiopian Korean War veterans. And there are some specific objectives, that is, I will conduct interview, taking photos. These people may not live longer than 10 years, as Professor said that. They are more than 18 now, and he passed away after some years, which means that we may not get these hero people after 10 or that years. Now we are ignite us to collect these people's heroes and their artifacts.
Can I ask a question? That's the total number of Korean War veterans?
Alive now.
Okay.
Alive.
300.
300 are alive now. And we are using back. And we use the material for data collection from Ethiopian Korean Bazaar, includes camera, computer, and scanner for scanning different artifacts, and skilled and trained persons to conduct the interview. Finally, as a part of the great work, I will represent my country for the KW Legacy Project and Korea's MPVA-related activities, and also I will preserve and promote the legacy of Ethiopian Korean War and also Korean War veterans as well as KWVDM. And I will maintain Ethiopian Korean War veteran records for future generations, and also this work consolidates the strong alliance between the Ethiopia and other UN member countries.
Okay. Alicia and Clayton, they are going to make a presentation. Yes.
Hi, so I'm Alicia, and this is Clayton.
I'm Clayton, and we are giving our presentation on how we can use social media to let people know about the legacy of the Korean War.
Okay, so social media, we looked at these stats, and they said that 93, I'll use this.
Okay, let's just hand it back.
Okay, so 93% of teens ages 12 through 17 go online. 63% of teens, teen internet users, go online every day. 27% of teens use their phones to get online. 73% of teens are on social network, and 8% of American teens use Twitter. So this is just kind of a little overview proving that our lives are run by the internet. We use the internet all the time, especially social media. You'll be sitting in class, you'll be sitting here with us, and we're on social media. We're looking to see what's hot, what's going on, like what are our friends doing, what are they liking on the pages. And this is kind of a foreign concept to our parents and grandparents, but it's a super way to spread what we're passionate about. So social media is going to be a very good outlet to spread the legacy of the Korean War.
Okay, so this is a quote from Thomas S. Monson, and it says, "Learn from the past, prepare for the future, and live in the present." So our grandpa is Clifford Wilcox, and he served in Korea. And something different about him is that he was very open about what happened in Korea to him. He wrote this history that's really detailed, and we've both read it, and it's really awesome. But this is kind of what stood out to me.
Also, our cousin Sam will be sharing some awesome pictures and facts from this in his presentation.
This was a portion that really stood out to me. And it said, "Forgotten war? Forgotten by whom? Certainly not by those who served there, nor by the families of the 33,913 United States servicemen and women who lost their lives there, or the 8,142 listed missing in action." The Korean War was a really important part of the world history, and in my opinion, it should never be forgotten. Those men and women, like the veterans we have here, Norm Champagne, they weren't over there for their own good. They were over there to stop communism, and I think it was really important. It's a shame that people haven't been learning about the Korean War. Like this says, we need to learn from the past to prepare for the future. And right now is the present, right now is the time when we need to be learning and having other people learn about what happened.
So, how are we going to keep it alive? I think that we can post on our social media, we can post on Twitter, we can upload pictures on Instagram, but if we're not passionate about something, people aren't going to listen. I personally haven't gone onto Facebook and been like, what war is going on? Like, what happened in the wars in the past? It's not something that we're going to go out and seek. So when you're passionate about something, people want to know about it. So I think the best thing that we can do is to talk, to tell people, why are we here? Why are we in Washington, D.C. right now? Why did some of us get to go to the peace camps in Korea? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? And it's because we're passionate about it, because we have loved ones that fought and served. Some of them aren't with us, but some are. So we really, really need to talk about it to keep it alive. After our grandpa went back to Korea to visit the sites, he told us about the Korea trip, and then we got in contact with the lady who was over that, and from there I started talking. I talked to my cousins, and I brought 2 cousins with me to Korea. Since then, 3 more have gone. Sam's here. My friend Tacey is from work. We work together, and we were just talking and realized that her grandpa's a veteran too. Actually, right before we boarded our plane to DC, we ran into some people at the airport, and we told them we're going to DC to celebrate the armistice for the Korean War. And they were like, "Hey, our grandpa served." And I was like, "You got to find out about this. We need to talk about it. We need to tell people, because there's more veterans than we realize, more people than we understand served, and we're friends with their grandkids, and we don't even know it. So we need to start talking on our social media, and just really, really start talking." Do you want to go to the next one? So this is a Facebook page we put together. We didn't realize that there was already one going, and so this was just like to get the word out. We got 70 likes in a week or 2, and we talked about it. I wrote on my Facebook page, this is what's going on. We're going to Washington, D.C., and the Korean War, we need to know what's going on. We need to learn from the past. Our grandpa served, and this is what we're doing. And people became interested in it. It was really awesome to see this Freedom is Not Free last night when we were walking around. And if we can really think about that, it hits home. It's not free. Our grandpa served. And the more we talk about it, the more people will know.
So, like Dr. Han said, it's if we're popular, then we'll get more people to know about it. But it's kind of true. If we can add like a post, we're in Washington D.C. on social media, and we're here because we had Korean War veterans as grandparents, and we're part of a program that's trying to get a database online, and if they see that, they ask questions like, "Oh, you're in Washington D.C. My grandpa was a Korean War veteran. He has really awesome stories that people need to know about." So yeah, social media. 70 likes doesn't seem like a whole bunch, but really, if we had 70 more interviews on the database, how great would that be? So if we can spread the word by social media, that's kind of what our point is.
So this is Sunny Lee, and she lives right below Zion, and she is the person to go to about the peace camp. Well, that was our connection. And this is our grandpa, Clifford Wilcox, and she has become a huge friend of our family. During our family reunion, a few of us drove out to her house in Zion. She has been such a great friend to our family. And our grandpa, he cries when he sees her sometimes, because he's so passionate about what happened and the alliance we have made. When I was in Korea, I didn't realize how phenomenal this whole situation is. Their country South Korea is thriving. They are so alive. And us teenage kids don't really understand the whole picture, but we can with more knowledge, and just if we can really get passionate about what's going on. So social media is so important, and we just need to keep trucking. And that's all. We're done.
Yeah, we're done. questions.
What's the address of your actual site? Because we got a similar one and we want to.
Oh yeah.
We want to cross hook.
Let's go back one.
Um,
Sorry. So what I'm thinking is, you guys already have a Facebook page that's pretty. I almost feel like we should transfer to that one, because this was just like the beginning basis to let people know why we were coming here, and to like to lead them to the KWVDM. And so this is just like a baby one. This is just a baby Facebook, but we need to transfer it to the big Facebook.
You can share it over to their Facebook. And
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it'll cross connect because we did that as well. So
Okay,
you can
sweet.
definitely do that. So give me your address.
Good idea. Okay. I will. Yeah.
Would you ever consider visiting other countries to see their memorials and posting about their memorials as well?
For sure. Yeah.
How would you do that?
With money. We need money.
I think that any way to get the word out. Like if you went to other country, I don't really have a lot of friends on Instagram or Facebook from other countries, but getting over there, talking to people, seeing their memorial, making connections, and you can that way talk to them, tell them about the database that we have going. It's just talking to people, getting the word out, not being afraid.
So when you're talking on Facebook, what's your gonna be your talking points? Like you have to when you're talking to someone who's not interested, you have to get that people interested. So what's your plan and what's your details about your?
I think one of the great things that people have sparked interest is, we're going to Washington, D.C., Are you going to Washington, D.C.? They're like, no. It's because our grandparent was in the Korean War and we're learning about it and stuff. Yeah.
I feel like when you let someone know you're passionate about something, it sparks their interest and they want to know more. So it's like creating a friend. You're already friends on Facebook, and then so you have mutual interests because you are friends. And when they understand that you're passionate about it, telling them, this is what happened, and my grandpa was in the war, and this is a big deal. Helping them to understand. I feel like when you're passionate about something, people are going to be interested. It doesn't mean they're also going to gain that passion, but there's a possibility that they will. Sam?
When you made this Facebook page and telling some of your friends about it, did you have any cool experiences or positive?
Well, yeah, I have some friends who have said, oh, my grandpa was a veteran. I'm like, you need to be involved. So, just been talking to people. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
So what exactly, do y'all want to be putting on a Facebook page? Is it just interviews, or are we facts about it, random daily facts?
I think that's a good question. I think daily facts is a great idea. I also think pictures of people we know personally. So pictures of our grandpa from this book. We have an Instagram going, and when he posted a picture of our grandpa, my friends were like, "Oh, hey Clifford!" They're interested that what my grandpa looked like when he was young and in the war. So yeah, pictures of them and daily facts is a great idea. Any more?
A question more for the group than just for you, Sue.
Okay.
You guys have a Facebook, and I think you guys said that you started Facebook, and I know we have a few Facebooks running around for the War Memorial. Do we want to have one group Facebook, and then we want to have whoever's chairing the committee when we decide that tomorrow? We want to have them kind of in charge of it, or a group of people in charge of whatever Facebook we're setting up. That way we can keep things going. Maybe we can, not necessarily now, but talking about it, thinking tomorrow.
That's why we set up 3 committees.
Yeah.
Online social media committee. Mm-hmm. And if you have enough connection already, okay, it's just a matter of getting them a little bit interested in, and then we can spread, like a germ, But,
yes.
But important question. things that we are exchanging through Twitter. I'm teaching about those things in the Facebook, and I published the book. Very, very regular, and it may sound very trivial things. That's what we are exchanging every day, every second, right? Where are you? What are you doing? Things like that. But that's the just beginning. But behind your hub there, you have your own network of people, network of relationship that already accumulate with a significant amount of face-to-face interaction and trust, right? So, as you suggested, I think we better identify where's the big hubs there, where a big relationship or the circulation going on. And among you, if you can find some of those, and just it's a matter of connecting to each other, right? And after that, as you said, it's a passion and talking, and it's a community building, I think. It takes some time, but it's not going to be like a face-to-face interaction that they did in the beginning of 20th centuries. They think that that's the only way to do it, but we have a different way, right?
4-party line.
So that's why I inserted this topic, online social media. It can make a difference, right? So I want you to talk a real more practical way and specific way to make things more active and connected, right, in the discussion time, including tonight after the dinner. And Samantha will talk about the textbook, but that can be another good topic. Textbook itself is not online social media, but the topic there and people asking questions, why not? Why is it such a short paragraphs there, even though it's important? That can, ignite, right? That can touch it upon, and there are many descendants, grandchildren like you, but they are not even aware they are even Korean War veterans' descendants. It's just a matter of, wake them up and then connect with your community. Then I think it's going to be very spiral. Yeah, that's the right word to do it, and that's why we measure N-1 factorial. So I really hope that we have 2 more days and you can talk a little bit more specific things and practical way that you can increase the membership, and the committee chairs has to be able to perform that, give them some kind of ideas. And Peace Camp, every year you have 200 people from 21 countries. We have that connection. I can give you that connection. I can give you the email list. You can spread it. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions or suggestions?